Hey everybody, Brian Hunt here with you again. And in this video, it is not a review. I am just going through some of the setup and some things. If you're renting this camera, if you're renting the Ronin 4D, or you're looking at purchasing this camera, I'm going to go into some of the things that on the setup and to help you kind of walk you through that. DJI has some videos on their website that do help you and stuff, but this is just going to be a very, meat and potatoes kind of video, in the sense, no sexy cinematic B-roll. I'm just showing you how some of the setup and different menu options on this camera. So this is the Ronin 4D. I'm looking at purchasing this camera, but like I've talked about in some of my other videos, when I'm doing that, I like to rent stuff first to make sure it is what I'm looking at purchasing and if it will work for what the kind of jobs and stuff that I do. So I'm going to throw a monitor on the top of this, just do an analog monitor just to record the screen here for you guys, to show you what I'm doing on the menus, and then we're going to go into some of the other things on it. I just threw that monitor on here just so I can record some of the menu settings for you guys, so you can see that. So this does not come with the camera. This is not needed to use the camera. But I'm going to show you first off the bat, if you want to start using this camera, is you have your different lens mounts and different lens mounts options here. Hababi Films, and what I'll be using this camera with most of the time, will be using the Sony E-mount. And this is a really cool thing on this camera. When I saw some of the different mounts on here, I was a little worried about, so if I wanted to get some of the DJI's native lenses that are a different mount option, you get those, you have to buy this separately. But it's actually a very cool thing here. If I see the side here, this little thumb up here, and then we're going to pull this down. All right, so that mount has came off. If you can see that there, twisting out of the side. So you don't need any screws and stuff to change out your mounts if you wanted to change from different lenses. So that's kind of a very cool thing there, the way that they've designed that. The other thing I wanted to test with this camera, and the reasons I'm getting it to test with beforehand, is to see what of my lenses would work, and some information for you guys. If you already have a bunch of Sony lenses, a bunch of native E-mount lenses, what lenses will work with this camera? Because it is you can do some adjustments on it, but there is certain lenses that DJI lists on their website of what can work with it, in the sense of being able to balance on the camera. And also some of these cameras, or some of these lenses, get information, electronic information to them, so you can change your f-stop, you can change your aperture, your f-stop, and do your focus internally with the camera, and using the LiDAR information from the focus on here to focus the lens as well. Philip Bloom has a great video that goes really in depth onto some of the limitations, some other things on that. There's some other people that have done a lot of stuff on how well this camera works. So this is, again, not a review of the camera, just going to show you how this works. So we're going to get over here, and we're going to take off this E-mount thing. So this lens cap, you do not want to lose. I'm notorious for losing lens caps on every shoot I'm on. So this is something you want to be sure you keep, because you have this information on here. This is a smart thing, and I think this is for updating or doing updates to the mount. So you can put some firmware and stuff on here. Yeah, this gives you like a firmware update option and stuff like that. So make sure you keep that to the side here. So I have a bunch of lenses here on my production truck, my pull-out bed here. I'm just throwing in a bunch of my Sony lenses. I just want to see, I'm going to start off with this 20mm 1.8 Sony lens. There's certain lenses I know that are a little bit smaller, and that I use on my Ronin RS2 a lot, just because of how small they are and how they work, and how they balance as well on the camera. So we put that on. So that lens is on. Okay, so that's step one. We have a lens on. Step two, you're likely going to want to use this camera with these side handles. Really cool way. I mean, you can use it without it, but you want to use it with these side handles. So they has a thing on the side here, so you can do your locking it, opening it. Very simple, putting it on, slide it on, lock, so you hear it lock and click into place. Pull this down the back here, so it's locked, and then you can use this to move your positioning around of your grips. So I can put this on the other side as well. Goes on the same way, locks in. When you want to take it off, you just flip that piece up and you use this little thing tab here and it will slide forward and you can pull these out. Okay, so we have the grips on. Next thing we want to do when we're turning on the camera is to, one, to check our balance on our lens first. And there's some cool features in this. It's all locking like you have on the RS2 and some of the other DJI gimbals or Ronins. So I can first check, the lock is down here for the tilt, and I can see what my balance is like. Some lenses that you will use on this camera are going to suggest you using the DJI counterbalance, the balance you can put on the back of this that gives you a bit more weight on the back, so you can't compensate, you can't pull this back any farther than this kind of little limited range you have here. But they have an extra kind of battery, or sorry, counterweight you can put on to help you balance this side of it. And if you wanted to do adjustments to this, you have these two screws up top here, these kind of things. You can loosen those off, and then you can do like that. You can push here, you can push there, until you're gonna get it into a place where you have it balanced. It has really good motors. I've done a little bit of tests with it. It seems like things don't have to be perfect, and it works well that way. So again, after I've done that, I can lock this, and then I'm going to take to the this side one here. So this one's interesting. I haven't figured out a way to do any balancing with this. It's kind of just, there's no other kind of tools here to do things. Because obviously you have the follow focus thing down here that we don't have set up right now, but there's no other way to balance that. So I'm going to leave that, and then we have our one here. The way that it's suggesting tuning this is similar to the other ones on DJI's Ronins or other gimbals, tipping forward and seeing how, if it kind of moves or doesn't move balance wise and stuff. So if it was, and it's actually not too bad on here. Maybe pull this in a bit more, and again, you have the thing on the side here. You can open it up, and you could push this forward a bit. So let's see if we pushed it forward quite a bit. Let's move this over again. This is not a balancing tutorial, just more of a setup kind of tutorial on how to use the camera. So don't critique me there. That's probably not perfect, but there's some cool things in the menu here that will show you if your balance is way off or there's some things you need to tweak. It will actually show you in the menu, which we'll get into in a second here. So now we have that done. When we want to turn this on, we want to make sure, like in other gimbals, our things are unlocked here. And then I'm going to show you on the side here, power button right here. Hold that down for a second. The boot up time on this camera is a little bit long. That's been some people's complaints about the camera. That's, it's about 20 seconds or so for it to fully boot up and to be operating. But you can see here, now it's going. So now we have the camera up and going. You see I have this up in the monitor. I'm going to start recording on here, and I'm going to power down for a second here. I don't think I'm getting my lens information it's not allowing me to do anything with my f-stop here in the camera, and it's not changing anything. And I'm also not able to focus. So power down here for a second. Technical difficulties already. I put on my 20mm lens. I wasn't getting any focus information. I wasn't getting my f-stop information. I had to take my, try to put my beloved 35mm. I've done a video on this lens before, but talking about the Sigma 35mm lens to see if it was a problem with my lens. And it was doing the same thing. I couldn't adjust any of my aperture, and I couldn't adjust any focus on here. Took off this lens and then took off the mount and put the mount on. I think I didn't put that mount on. Maybe the engagements weren't in there completely properly. So now it is working, and I am going to turn this camera back on. So again, undoing your locks here to make sure these are all good, and then turn the camera on. If you turn the camera on with the locks on, like other DJI Ronins, it will give you a warning. It will start to beep, and then it will say, do you want to put the gimbals to sleep? Because it's not good for the motors if the motors are running and the gimbal's in a lock position. So they're smart enough to know that, and they will put the gimbal to sleep or the motors to sleep. You can use this as a touchscreen as well, so you can go through and do your ISO. You have your different native ISOs. You can go up to, it's pretty cool that it actually says native on them to help you know that this is a native. You're not just guessing. Sony does not do that on like their A7S3s or the FS3, or sorry, FX3. It doesn't do that. So then you have your aperture. You can adjust your aperture. If you have a lens that's getting the information on here, you can do your shutter speed. You can do and you can also change it to shutter angle. You can do your your frames per second, change that stuff. You can change your, basically real quick, you could change, you know, what you're shooting at, if you want to do 6K or the 4K, and you can change your white balance. You can change your time code. You can reset your time code, set your NDs here. This has actually got a ton of different NDs here, which is great. So you can flip through all here, and I can put a whole bunch of ND on here. So there we go. That's a real quick thing on the touch screen here. Now the other way you can do some stuff on this camera is this multi-controller here. This is actually can work as your focus. You can see here I'm pulling this. I'm going to pull focus over here. Okay, this can be used as a focus, but I'll show you the other thing on the side grip of what you'd probably likely be using it for focus with as well. That's going to work a lot better. If you jump onto different things here, if I go onto ND and then I use this side thing here, it's still on focus. You can have the side little piece here. I'm kind of learning some things as I'm showing you guys. I've watched some stuff. I've read through the manual from DJI and played with it a bit last night, but I'm still kind of learning as I'm showing you as well. So on this thing here, you can then scroll through some of the different things like this. You could do the same thing when you're on here. You can use that to scroll through your ISO, scroll through your f-stop, through your shutter speed, etc. All your stuff on here, on the menu. Now, getting over to the camera, if you want to get into the menu and do some other tweaking and different things in it, different setups of stuff, it took me forever to find the menu button. And it's a home button. The home button on the side here, hitting that. I believe the one there's on the side, one of the side handles as well. So if you do that, it pops up your menu. So you're going to get into your basic kind of menu here, and it's actually really great. It's really simple. I've heard somebody else describe it very similar to the Blackmagic one, which is also great. Something I loved using when I had the Blackmagic cameras, and how simple it was, and how, you know, you didn't have 1,000 different menu things like you do on the Sony, especially the Sony DSLRs. So, you know, you have your recording, you can go in here, you can use a touch screen, you can go 35mm or Super 35, which is going to change your resolution. Sorry, change the crop on the sensor is also going to change. There's certain frame rates and different things you need to be in that setting to get. But we'll go over that in maybe a longer video or in a more review of it. But this is kind of more, again, just tutorial on how to use the camera. So if you can watch this, and hopefully you're up to speed quickly if you're renting this camera. So you can do that. You can change your codec here. So right now, as of, this is April 2022, the firmware update that has on this now, you can either do ProRes 422 HQ, or you can do H.264. I am going to do some testing image-wise and stuff for myself, and then show you guys later how much difference those two are. I mean, obviously there's some huge different compression ratings and stuff. There might be some scenarios where H.264 is going to be better for me for just getting recording time. We'll go into that a bit later. Now we go over to, again, you can change your resolution here. Sorry, resolution. You can change your base IS, or your base frames per second. So if I want to shoot, I can go up to 60 frames. Actually, it's going to tell me it's going to be changing the settings here a bit. It's going to change my cropping on it, and it's great that it gives you these little warnings when you do these things. Okay, confirm. Now, there's storage. It's going to tell you what your storage is connected. Right now I have the Ronin, their own SSD on the side here, which you need for some of their different stuff. I have to do some more research into this as well. I've heard some different things about using the CF Express Type A card on here. I believe it's the A, maybe it's not the B. I always get confused with the two. The FX6, my FX6 that Jonah's filming on right now, that uses the CF Express Type B cards, but this camera doesn't use those, unfortunately, so I can't swap them back and forth and use them that way. There is also a way to get another, like the little Samsung external SSDs that you would use a lot of times. I've used before on the Blackmagic cameras. I don't know what the limitations are with that. I'm actually going to try to get one this weekend and do some testing with that. So then we have our storage. Let's go back to here. You got your what LUT you want to shoot this in. Do you want to shoot it in D-Log, and do you want to shoot it in Rec 709? You can change that stuff here. I'm going to keep that on D-Log. You can change your camera, reel, all that stuff, your clip number, kind of basic things. You can go over to the next screen. That's your audio recording. So I haven't done, again, much testing at all with this audio-wise. I've heard some different things. It's very limited to what you can do on the audio. There's no XLR inputs on this, so you can do some tweaking here to the thing. Oh, I'm getting a low battery warning, so we're going to cut for a second, and I'm going to throw a battery in here. But you'll see, I'm going to show you in the back here. Let's do a power down. Just hold the power button for a couple seconds. These are they're called the TB50s. These are the Ronin's or DJI's batteries. These are the ones that are used on the Inspire 2, and they're also used on the Ronin 2. And they're pretty good batteries. I have a bunch of them. That's one of the interesting things that I'm looking at with this camera, because I have an Inspire 2 that I can be using some of the batteries I have from the Inspire 2 over on this. No one's making, as I've seen as of yet, a thing to put V-mounts on this. I could see that coming as a option, so just to know, but usually rental houses like this one from Hababi Films, I have 4 of these batteries. So, and this is probably something I should have done at the beginning, because you'll need to do this when you're setting up the camera the first time, but it's pretty straightforward. If you don't know how to put a camera battery in or something like that, then you probably shouldn't be renting the camera and trying to use the camera anyways. So we're going to slide this down. Clicks in, it's on, and we'll turn the camera back on. And now we have a full battery. These ones you can check on the back here too to see how many lines in your kind of left there for your battery percentage. And again, it's going to boot back up. It's a little cold here this morning in Ontario, Canada. It's a little brisk. Hoping it'd be a bit warmer, but it's a little chilly. Okay, so going back into this camera now after we got the battery on there, there is some different things we're going to go through here on the audio setup. Okay, so you have this. We're not going to change too much on that. We're going to go into the settings here. This is where you could change your noise reduction, some image sharpening. We're not going to play with any of that stuff. You could put your tally light on and off over here. I do like playing with my tally light sometimes, especially on some doc shoots where you don't want people to know that you're maybe rolling on camera. Turn off your tally light. Kind of a cool feature to have. Let's go over to display here. So on the display tab, you have your first one is going to be, so we can go right over to the beginning of that, exposure assistance. So this is where you can put your zebras on, your waveforms on, false colors on. You also have some buttons on the back of this monitor. So some of these ones for your focus exposure assistance, there is an exposure assistance button back here, right here, and you can toggle through those as well. We'll go through that a bit after, but showing you there's a different way to do that. Then we're going to go into focus assist. This is where you can change your, and this is the focus button here. You can change this to focus magnification, to LiDAR waveform. You can change that to focus peaking. You can turn peaking on, do that stuff that way. Then we get over to monitor. This is what you want to see on your monitor as well. So you can change a frame guide. Maybe you want to have, showing a guide is that you're going to be framing back stuff up for 16:9, whatever aspect ratio you're going to be finishing on. You want to have that as a guide for when you're recording. Great way to do stuff that way. You have the transparency of that. You have a safety zone you can turn on. You have the monitor LUT here. So this is something I like to play with sometimes. Sometimes I like to, as it's right now, have a monitor where I can see I have a Rec 709 LUT kind of put over top of the D-Log. It's shooting D-Log in it. But sometimes I also want to see what does it look like in native D-Log. And there you go. Then you can see that this is what it looks like in D-Log without a kind of a LUT put on top of it to bring it back to Rec 709. You have your center marker. You can turn it off, you can make it small, and you can make it large. Pretty simple. Brightness of the display, you can rotate this. I'm guessing that's if you're flipping it around and you're shooting yourself kind of selfie-wise or so and using the tracking option on this. And then you have looks here. So the look is what you're filming to the camera with. I'm going to do D-Log. You can do Rec 709, you can do a HLG. Now, you also have a thing here for your LUTs, and I haven't figured this out yet. I don't know if you can import LUTs here, no LUTs detected. So that's gonna be maybe on a later video of figuring out how you do that. Likely something where you need to load onto your SSD and bring in that way. Let's exit out of here. You can do a user profile. And if I figure out some cool things and some good ways of setting this up, I will make this as a user profile that I will also put into the description of this video, or do in a later video like I've done with the FX9, the FX6, that you can easily load into the camera and get some settings right away without having to go through the menu to tweak some stuff. Or less time in the menu tweaking stuff. Most people still, even when you use somebody else's profile settings, will want to customize for their own uses and own things. You get into your storage here, so you can format the card. So I'm going to do that. I shot some stuff yesterday just as a little test, but I'm going to format here. Tap the hole. This is a nice little feature here. There we go. And then it's formatting. So nice. You can't just accidentally hit it formatted. You have a little bit of a safety there. You have to confirm and hold your fingers down there to format it. And then system, so fan mode's normal, factory reset. You have some issues. I guess if you had some problems with it, you could export a log. Okay, so then we're gonna go into the lens support. So this is kind of the cool things, or one of the really cool things with this is the different modes for focusing on here. So you can go focus, autofocus, and focus AMF autofocus. So this is like a manual autofocus, and so a lot of people have ever talked about this in the video. I've been playing with this. I'm going to play with it a bit more, but basically you can use a side thing here, and if you have the autofocus on, you can, this actually, the side, this little scroll kind of focus wheel here that can actually be used to go through different things in the menu as well, or change your f-stop or change your NDs. But most people will be using this for focus. It will actually move when you're in that mode of the AMF, the manual autofocus, and you can override it. You can stop it at some places and stuff. That's what I'm going to be doing a bunch of testing with this weekend with the camera to see. But that's where you can change these modes. And I believe there's some other buttons we're going to play with later where you can change those modes kind of quickly as well on camera. You can actually do it, sorry, I'm lying to you as well, touch screen wise. You can turn it on and off on the side here. Track, autofocus. So go back into the menu. You can change your units for your focus distance. If you want to see stuff in imperial, if you're in the US and you like seeing stuff in feet and inches, you can do that here. And if you like seeing stuff in metric, like the rest of the world, and us in Canada, you can do that in a round number with hundreds. You know, centimeter is 10 millimeters, a meter is 1,000 centimeters, a kilometer is 1,000 meters. So they're just round numbers and numbers that make sense. When you start using imperial, it's all fractions and all different things, and like 12 inches per, and what, how many, this all doesn't make any sense to me. It's too complicated. In America, you make things way too complicated with imperial. I'm going on a bit of a rant here about that, but imperial stuff, even though in Canada we use feet and we use miles per hour because you guys are so close to us, but I get completely confused by imperial stuff. So I digress. You can change your sensitivity here. I haven't really played too much with this yet to understand what this changes with this, the autofocus sensitivity. Then you're going to get into your stabilizer. So this is going to give you information on what mode you're in. You can also change the modes. There's some things here right on the side of the camera. And these are your basic, you know, your PF, your PT, your FPV, your basic. You can turn it off, and you can have a lock as well. These are kind of basic stuff that you would see on other DJI and a lot of other manufacturers' gimbals. But in here, you can do some tweaking to this. So you can change your speed of your follow. You can change your axis, kind of what you're doing. This is a kind of a cool place to see this as well. In here, this is the Z axis, which is the axis I haven't popped up here yet. I'm gonna do that quickly right now. I'm gonna push the 4D thing on the side here, and you'll see that pop up here. So now we have the Z axis enabled. So on here you have different ones. You can lock it, you can do, and another one I'm very interested in is the car mount. What I believe the car mount does and changes on here is that there is sensors on the bottom of this camera. So I have it on a tripod now. If you're doing it handheld and you're walking, it has the sensors that it's knowing where the ground is below it, and it's helping that to balance. When you're putting it on a car mount, you're gonna have the sensors over top of the car likely, and it's not gonna know that distance. So, and it kind of, from what I've heard, can cause some issues. So this is where you can go around and play with that stuff. You have sports mode. Sports mode, I don't know too much about yet. I think it's just a much faster motion thing. I think if you're moving really quickly, I think maybe it enables some stuff. I read some stuff on the DJI's, the manual yesterday about the sports mode. I think it's, you know, if you're doing some running, it's gonna help to balance out even more. Something I'm gonna play with a bit more too, but this is where, again, I'm not showing a tutorial or a review of the camera. It's more how to use the menu settings, how to get these things, and how to find them quickly. So when you're playing with the camera and figuring out what's happening and what's not happening, where you can go in the menus and do these things. So I'm a very visual person. Most people that are camera operators and people working in video are very visual people, so I'd rather watch a video than read a manual. Okay, so we're gonna go to the other thing. We have our joystick speed. So you have a joystick on this hand grip here, and you can do stuff with this, and you can move it around, okay? You can change all the speeds and stuff there. I'm going to leave that stuff for now. You have the gimbal calibration. So this is a cool thing. This is what you have, again, on lots of all the other DJI gimbals. If you want to calibrate and make sure it's balanced properly for your lens that you have on, for the weight you have on. So you can do an auto tune. You can confirm it. And it's going to do the kind of going crazy, funky chicken, you know, seizure cam thing that the DJI Ronins do, and then it's going to go, you can change the other parameters on here as well. Awesome. Transmission, we're not going to get into this right now. We're going to do some tests with it in a minute, but this is where you would put, and I have the back on here, this is for the transmitters. If you want to be using the wireless system and using the grips on the side of it, this is where you'd be setting stuff up that way. So that's going through the whole menu. Very simple, very basic. Basic in a good way. Now we're gonna go and play with some other things on the side here, and I'm just gonna actually, I had this disconnected. This is one of the cables you need for the LiDAR balanced. I'm also gonna show you guys another thing real quick here, a couple things. The forward infrared sensor error. Well, we might have to turn off and try again to see if that's not working. Let's just power down here and see. With the LiDAR connected now, I'm going to show you a couple of things in here. This is where we can adjust stuff on. If we click this little button on the side here, it looks like a little gimbal head. If there's problems with the axes, and it'll tell you what's off, this is kind of a good place to see. It'll tell you it'll give you different lines here, and we'll do some testing with this after to show you that if you need to adjust some stuff on that, there is the Z axis, which I'm going to turn on right now, enable. Okay, this little screw up here, if you can see this screw here, it has a plus or minus on here. You can adjust this, and this does the tension of what's in the spring here. So depending on your weight of your lens you're using and stuff, you do have to do some tweaking with that. On the x-axis, if you're way off and it was like not compensating for it, it would give you a red line or a yellow line here to show you that you're off and how to help you tweak that back. So that's a kind of a cool little tool here you have on here. Now, we're gonna go over here now to the, so we get the LiDAR on. I'm gonna Jonah here, see if we can, and see if our focus is gonna stay on him. This is the, you can see how on the controller here, it wants to, it's kind of, I had some issues with this yesterday. The people are saying this focus is amazing, but I'm having some issues that way. Let's see here, there we go, focus is on there. Let's see if we bring it over here. Focus there. This is something I'm going to play a bit more. This is where you can be adjusting this stuff in. Turn that off. I can be just kind of fully manual. If I hit the focus track there, I can do the tracking here as well. This is where you can select something if it sees it. I'm going to get this guy in focus, and it will track them. You know, as I'm moving the camera, it's staying there on Jonah. If it's staying on it, I've been having a little bit of issues. Some people have said that this stuff is amazing on the camera. This is one of the things I do want to test more with, but this is where you would play with that stuff on here. So now let's go into some of the features on the controllers here. So the two hand sides here. So if we look over this one, we have, again, we can be using this to pull focus here, go up to infinity, go back down. Okay. We can do our record buttons right here. When it records, it's kind of nice. It turns on red. I don't know if that's the tally light or not, but that's recording there. We also have, you can change on the peaking here. You can change your mode. It's not, there we go. So the mode is kind of hard to see here. But if I click the mode there, it now turns on to, there's an ND. So if I use the side here now, the side controller here, or the side focusing, I can go through all my NDs. If I change the mode over to ISO, I'm using this to go through the, if I change the mode over to f-stop, I can be changing my f-stop here. So this is a kind of cool thing they have in the camera where you can actually be using it just from the grips. Like you don't need to be touching the monitor. You can toggle through all this stuff. So if you're operating and you're just like this, you can be doing some things and going through all the different settings here. And if you go back and there's nothing on, then you can see, you know, you can go. There is another button on the side here, which is the autofocus button. You can see it here. This is an autofocus button. So if I want it right in there, so that autofocus button is on the inside of your hand here. So if I hit it, you'll see it turns the autofocus on, and I can turn it off. And I can turn off peaking and turn peaking back on right here. So it's kind of a cool thing. When it's quickly in a shot, move from shooting autofocus and go over to manual. Again, I can also be overriding it when I'm in that kind of auto manual autofocus. So that's the kind of buttons on the side here. On the side of the body of the camera here, you have your connections for your monitor. You have a mic input that I have not tried yet, and then you have your HDMI out, which I'm using right now to get to this Atomos recorder so I can record the screen for you guys. Now, I haven't figured out if there's a way to do a clean display on this yet, but I do want all this information on here so I can record that for you guys so you can see that. Going on to the other side of the camera, the other grip here. So, and actually there's one more on here too. There's a front button here, this finger here, and this, what it does is enables or disables the 4D. So if I hit it, you'll see the, double click it, boom, and the 4D is up. And in some situations you might not want to be using the 4D axis, and I'm going to go with that, and it's back, and it's what's called 4D lock. The 4D is not working, so I'm going to bring it back up. Let's go back over to this grip here. The front grip here, so if you have your joystick up top, so if you have your hand in, you can be using this joystick, moving the camera all around, awesome. And say you get it all the way off and you want to figure out and get this back centered, double clicking brings that gimbal back centered. You can lock everything right here. So this is locking, or sorry, it's just locking the stick controller. So if you have it on lock, you can see this here now it's saying stuff. You can't move this around, so you can't bump this and stuff if you wanted to have it that way. If you had changed your, you can change your different focus things here, and you can go through your different smart, seems like this little button right here, your different focus options. Hold it again, wide, autofocus enabled, smart enabled. And then we have our exposure compensation. So this is what we showed you in the menu before. If I want to change this to something else, I can go to display, I can go to focus assist, and this is waveforms on, but also peaking focus. It's a peaking button. The exposure assistance, I want it to be not false color. I think I can make it. No, I think. That's a good question here. Sorry again, you guys are learning with me. So that's putting on false color. I thought there was a way you can change that to zebras too. Let's see here. Zebra. There we go. Zebras on and off if you like rather using zebras. Okay. Those are the basic kind of controls on the side here. There's another one on the side here, which is your M. So the M button changes the mode of what you're setting in for your Z-axis and stuff too. So my Z-axis right now, it says sport. I change that, hold it down. It is now in medium and follow. I can put it, and I'll take it off again. It's in sport because I've put stuff into the sport mode. I'm going to go back in here, and I'm going to go over to, and I'm going to turn off the sport mode, and then I'm going to go back. And now if I hit this button here, it's going into sport mode only when I hold down. So you can toggle back and forth that way. On the side of the camera here, you have a full body lock. So you can lock this. Forgive I just threw this really quickly on the tripod. You would typically never really use this camera on a tripod, what it's designed for. But you have a lock thing here, which just locks everything on the camera. You can change your gimbal modes here. So you can turn the whole gimbal off. You can do a follow, and you can do a lock. You can do your FP, PT, and your FPV. Okay. Then you have your Z modes here, which is, you can go lock, hold this down, follow, lock. You can do a recenter here, which is recentering the gimbal. The same buttons as the side here. I haven't figured out yet if you can program these buttons, if you can change what they're on them, but that's something I am going to play a bit more with, figure that out. Let's go over now. We're going to try to we've gone through all the basic buttons here and getting things that can get you going and get you working on this camera. Another thing I want to show you here is this SSD on here. This is kind of a funny thing with it. You have to use some screws here to take these off if you want to get this SSD off or put the SSD thing on. I wish it was a bit quicker. I wish there was a way you could have an SSD and a CF Express card in there as well to do dual recording, but it actually connects into the CF Express port, as that's how it gets the recording that way. And I think this one is, yeah, you have a USB-C out here. This is where you would go to another thing like you would use those other SSDs, and I'm going to do some testing with. But from what I've heard and what I've seen on the body or on the menu of the camera, if I plug in another SSD, then you're either recording to this SSD, the native one, or the other SSD. You can't be doing both at the same time. and you're either recording to an SSD or a CF Express. You can't do both at the same time. Maybe there will be a firmware update later that will help with this and you can have a bit of a backup recording. I'm also going to see what frame rates and different resolutions I can do with the external SSD, because those external SSDs, those Samsung ones, 1 terabyte one is like, in Canadian dollars, around, I think they're like under 300 bucks. These ones from DJI, a 1 terabyte SSD is $1,000 or 990 something Canadian. So pretty big difference price wise. If you can get another one to work just as well, it's just figuring out how you mount it on here. That would be a great option. But let's go now and figure out getting the wireless transmitter setting up. So let's go see here. So this is a monitor here. It's really nice, coming from DJI. If you buy this separately, you have different battery options you can use here. I believe I don't know if it comes with it, but you have one where you can use a Sony L mount on this as well. These are the same batteries that DJI uses on their crystal displays. So let's see here. Let's power this on. Then we're going to take off these side grips. And we're going to put these onto this. That's what a very cool thing what this is designed for. Lock that in. All right. And I don't see anything yet. So let's go over here. Maybe it takes some time for us to boot up. But let's go over here. It's probably not getting a signal, and that's probably why. Let's go into the menu, camera here, and let's go over to transmission. There's broadcast mode, and there's multi. Enable mirror control mode. We'll restart the, okay. Mirror control mode, that means it is when I can't get the HDMI output when I do that as well. So let's try that. Once you have the handles on here, you've turned on your system. If it is already been installed, there is a DJI on their website showing you how to install this thing if you need to put that in. But if you're getting it from Rental House and you're getting it with this, like the one they have at Hababi Films, it's already installed. It's already been linked. The linking is in the menu here. If you need to link, going over to your transmission, and you can do a link there, and you can change your different modes there and different things of what you're setting. So automatically, it's really cool. I'm going to show you here, record on this as well. It kind of comes up right away, and you know, from right now, I can be using this. I mean, I'm right beside the camera, so it's not that impressive, but I can be adjusting it, you know, pay this over to Jonah, and I can be changing my focus on here and bring this back, you know. So I can also change my modes. Actually, I can't change my mode because I think I'm in what's called broadcast right now. But if I change this here to, it's going to say mirroring mode, control mode will restart Ronin 4D. Let's go confirm. Let's see what happens here. I'm probably going to lose an image off the side here. Okay. Now I am in. I have all these touch screens here. I can be using this stuff. I can turn this stuff on. I can basically be doing all the same controls as I was doing here before, but let's go walk for a little bit here. So there I am. Oh, it's trying to pull onto me focus here. And you can see as I'm walking here, the focus, as I was telling you before about how it automatically will move this. It actually moves it when it's trying to pull focus. So let's see how it's moving there. As we're moving around. Okay, so we can do stuff here with the transmission. We can play with the focus here. We can override that. We can turn that off. I can take the autofocus on off here. I can take the track off here. If I put the track on, it's tracking on Jonah. Then we start walking over here. Jonah, come with me. It's tracking on you. So you see the head is tracking there, doing it that way, which is kind of a cool, pretty cool, awesome feature actually. I mean, it's one of the cool things in here. Again, I'm trying not to do a review of this. I'm just trying to show you how these things work on here. But you can do all the same controls with this once you have the wireless monitor set up. And that's a really awesome feature. I can't wait to use this on car mount for doing some different things shooting that way. And it's a beautiful looking monitor as well. And apparently this transmission works for crazy far. So let's change our NDs. We can change everything. This is pretty awesome. So we show you that. Let's go back to the camera now. I'm going to power this down. Holding down this for a couple seconds. I am going to change this on here, the follow mode. I no longer need a transmission. Okay, it doesn't have that there, which is great. I don't need a mirror mode. It's going to restart and back into place. Okay, so right now we're going to, again, I'm going to change, I can put the 4D back on, take that back down. I'm going to power down here for a second because I'm going to change lenses on here. Change to something else and try it out. But for you guys, I hope you've liked this kind of little run through on how to set up this camera, how to get it working, how to get it usable so you can be doing stuff. What we didn't go into yet is the focus, the manual focus wheel and stuff here. So if you want to be able to doing stuff with lenses that are not any electronic information, using other lenses that way for pulling, cinema lenses, cinema glass. I have this little guy I was going to do some testing with. This little SLR Magic putting on here, but I'm not going to do that right now as in this video. That might be a different video. Let me know in the comments below if you would like to see one on that, on how to set this up, how to calibrate your lenses when you're doing manual lenses, cinema lenses, cinema glass kind of style on your Ronin 4D. I will do another video specifically to that. But I hope you guys like this video. I hope get you up running quickly. You can just watch this while you're got a rental and you're setting it up and doing some camera prep and playing with it, and hopefully it made finding some things a little bit quicker. And me running through this process like this just helps me get familiarized with the camera. And so I thought just to capture that at the same time and let you guys see that, to hopefully maybe give you some insight and speed stuff up for you when you go to try this camera out or rent this camera. Later on, I'm going to be doing a full review of the camera, my thoughts with it, some of the tests I'm doing with it, and letting you know if I decided that this is going to be something that's going to be useful for me in my work, and if I'm purchasing this camera or not. So we'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like this video, you thought it was terrible, give me a thumbs down. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you'd like to see, what more information you'd like to see about the Ronin 4D, and we'll see you on the next video.